So we have began a series of videos on underscoring. Underscoring, recall what that means. Underscoring, it means playing music underneath spoken dialogue, underneath a visual scene. It's usually used for TV or movie industries. And for us, on our purpose, as a piano player, we're talking about playing underneath anything that's happening. And for our videos in this series, we're talking specifically about church scenarios. What do you do when you're asked to play behind talking, play behind prayer, play behind preaching, communion, announcement? How do you do this effectively? How do you support the dynamics? What if you need to play in a certain mood that emphasizes certain qualities, certain emotions, and how to do that without sticking out? That is what we're going to talk about in this series of videos. Last week, we introduced you the concept of playing the atmosphere and playing in free time. Basically, any one of the numbers of the chords in the scale, they, for most of us, they convey a certain emotion. And by sticking to that chord, play in that atmosphere, you're going to be able to create a certain emotion for that situation. Today, we're going to continue on that journey, continue on that train of thought, and we're going to see what happens when we start to chain these chord progressions back together, chain these chords back together to create short chord progression loops. And you're going to find that now we have a little bit more dynamic arc into our music loop. We have a little bit more interesting things that's going on that will probably help accompany the plot, accompany the situation even more better than we have been doing in the past. So let me give you a demo and then we'll talk about it. So as always, we are going to take the song Goodness of God, and we're playing this in the key of G. And then let's pretend that at the end of that, the pastor is going to come up and he is going to read from Psalm 23. And we're going to just accompany him. I'm going to go through the method that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to play through it and then we'll talk about it.
Psalm 23, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
So what are we doing here? What we're doing really is I'm playing short chord progression loops that I've already sort of familiar myself with. Short progression loops, and these progression loops, we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a second, but what it allows me to do, and hopefully it comes out that way as well when you're listening to it, it sounds a little bit more sophisticated. It gives you more emotion, and it's not just like a feeling now. It's not just like a feel, not just an atmosphere. Now there's like some story into it, there's some arc into it. We're getting almost into the territory of soundtracking, movie soundtrack. We're a little bit sort of like that. We're trying to paint a story, paint a picture. There's an arc, there's some movement, and it's a little bit more dynamic. It's more for storytelling. And hopefully you heard when I tried to chain these chord progressions together in the Psalm 23. There are moments in that reading where you felt, hey, this is really peaceful, this is a moment of resolution perhaps, and there are moments where it's a little bit darker, a little bit a moment of tension. Now obviously with any chord progression loop, it runs into a problem that potentially if you had to get out of it, you will need some coordination. But for us in here, the reason why I like this method so much is because the loop itself is very, very short. So it lends itself very well if you need to get out of the loop, if you need to exit the loop at any time, you can do so. So we're going to talk about how to do that. Now, let's break down what exactly I'm doing here. And I'm going to type out these chord progressions for my Patreon, and you can, if you subscribe to me there, if you support me there, you can get access to some of these references and resources that I use from videos. But if for now, for our sake, I'm just going to talk about the chord progressions, the common chord progressions that I use for the underscoring purpose. Though when I went through the exercise, the first one that I did was this. It was a 4-5-1 chord progression. 4 in the key of G. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is the C chord, 5 is the D chord, and 1 is the G chord. And I used the 4-5-1 chord progression. And I added a little 1 sus chord to it. For me, this is a very positive, very sort of motivational kind of feeling, really bright sounding. So this is a short little chord loop that you can use. There's 2 bars. The minor version of this is 4-5 to 6. This is good when you want a little bit more drama into your accompaniment. I did that, I think, near the section of Valley of the Shadow of Death. 4, 5, so that's your second progression that you could use. And then when it got a little more comforting, I went up to here. I changed the range, and we talked about that, I think, in the past. But now I changed my chord progression as well. What I'm doing is I'm doing a 1 and then 5/7 and a 6. 1, 5/7, 6. Let me do that again. 3, 4. The 1 chord, 5/7. And this is a little bit more sweeter. It's a little bit more comforting. It's a little bit more heartwarming, I feel. And it fits that scenario. It fits the, I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever, that section. And if you need something that's a little bit more uncertain, for Psalm 33 we didn't have any of those, but what you can do is you can do like a 2-3-2-3 chord progression. So 2 is the A minor, and then 3 is a B minor. 1 bar each. And then you just go back and forth between them, and it gives you this sort of wandering, sort of uncertain feeling. You're not really resolved anywhere. There's not really a moment of tension anywhere. You're just not sure. And this is really good if there's like testimony. If anybody's sharing testimony and they're sharing a time of sort of wandering, doubt. And if you need to go darker, you can hit the 6 minor, to the 5, to the 4. To the end, 6 minor. So there are all kinds of, different combinations you can use, all kinds of chord progressions, short little loops that you can use. And note that I'm not taking any of these from the song. So this is different from the first approach that we talked about. I'm not taking this from the song. I'm really these are banks of chord progressions that I have sort of learned myself, and I'm sharing with you now, that you could use at your own, and with any song really, as long as you do it in the same tempo. And the good thing about this, again, is even though it's a loop, you can get out of it any time. So if I were to be in the wandering chord progression, the 2-3, and then if you're done, you can just play the chord, and then so you go to the bridge, the chorus. So anytime, because the chord progressions, they're generic enough, they're loopy enough, and they don't really give you any sense of where in the song you are. You can just break the chord progression, the loop, at any time. Just insert a chord, insert the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 1 chord, depending on the song, and you can get out of it. So this is very, very useful for me, I feel, when I'm trying to put this in the middle between 2 songs, or even when I'm just ending it. And it gives a little bit more movement, a little bit more story into the underscoring, as opposed to last time where it was just hanging on 1 chord. So what I would suggest you to do is take this concept and practice it. I'm going to type out some of these chords for you, and you can go back to the video and watch the chords that I use. It's 4-5-1, 4-5-6, 1-5-6-4, those kind of stuff. Practice the chord progressions. Make sure you practice in all the keys possible. Get familiar with them, where you can find them, and then when you are when you find yourself to be in a scenario where you have to underscore, what you can do is try to pull out some of these chord progressions. For practice, I would suggest you to do it at the end of the song, where you're ending a set, so that you don't have that pressure of, okay, I have to think of what to do next, going into the next song. So I would suggest you to practice this at the end of the set, and then once you get familiar enough, once you get comfortable enough, you can then link the songs together with this method. So next week, we're going to wrap up this video series. I just have one little quick tip that I have for you left. So I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So if you like this content, if you enjoy videos like these, and if this is helpful for you, subscribe to the channel, leave me a like, and let me know in the comments section if there's anything that you thought I could cover, if there's any other questions that you have, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.